What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. We are on day 5 of 32 teams in 32 days, and we are talking about the Buffalo Bills. Last year on this very podcast, I predicted the Buffalo Bills would surprise the NFL. I thought they'd be highly competitive. I thought they'd make the playoffs, and I said Josh Allen would be a dark horse candidate, and I told you to put some money down. I sure did. No, that didn't come to fruition, but it came pretty close to Josh Allen winning an MVP. And the Buffalo Bills actually surpassed even what I thought. I said the Buffalo Bills would go 11-5, make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and they ended up going 13-3. The Buffalo Bills were just fantastic last year, and that's with their defense kind of taking a slight step back. So, when we look at that, I think the Buffalo Bills they're going to keep trending up and up and up, especially if Josh Allen stays on that level. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about additions, departures, draft picks, strengths, weaknesses. I'm going to be previewing their entire team for this coming season and making a prediction along with a bold prediction that I think might come to fruition for the Buffalo Bills this coming season. So let's start with additions and re-signings. They get Mitch Trubisky, big deal. He's going to overtake that quarterback position from Josh Allen. They also signed Matt Breida, Emmanuel Sanders, Jacob Hollister, Levi Wallace, Matt Milano, Darrell Williams, Forrest Lamp, and John Feliciano. I think they got some guys that are under the radar. I think Breida's a guy who can play in spurts, and I think he's a guy who's just constantly hurt. But I think he's a very talented guy. I think Jacob Hollister can actually really add to that tight end. I think he's going to get a lot of reps, a lot more than what people think right now. We saw he was a little banged up, blew out his knee. But I think when he was healthy, him and Russell were cooking a little bit. They were getting some stuff going. And they got Milano really helps bring back to that linebacking core, does a lot of things under the radar. When we go to departures, they lost John Brown. So they end up getting Emmanuel Sanders for John Brown. For this offense, I think I'd rather have John Brown, but Emmanuel Sanders is a little bit of a different player. Once upon a time, he could be that down the field threat, but now I kind of think he's going to work that intermediate, almost kind of go along hand in hand with the Cole Beasley, but work it from the outside. Andre Roberts, Tyler Croft, TJ Yeldon, Trent Murphy, Quentin Jefferson, EJ Gaines, and Josh Norman. Not huge losses. I think they're pretty good. I think the additions outweigh the departures so far. When we go to draft picks, they go out and get Gregory Rousseau, Boogie Basham, Spencer Brown, and Tommy Doyle. Gregory Rousseau, I like him. I think he's a little raw, obviously. He's a guy who's pretty twitchy. You look at his counterpart at Miami was Jalen Phillips. Phillips is definitely the more refined pass rusher, but I think, Gregory has the higher upside, if you will, just from an athletic profile. I actually like Boogie Basham more. I think he's a guy who, could end up producing 6 to 8 sacks this year. I think he's a really talented guy. I believe Wake Forest is where he went. So I really like it. They're really trying to work on that pass rush, which I think was their biggest weakness. And we'll go into their weaknesses here in a second. But first, let's start off with strengths. When I look at this team, they're just overall extremely talented. As far as offense, man, they got some absolute firepower. Elite quarterback, man, a guy who's going to be an MVP candidate for a while now. I think they have underrated running backs. Zach Moss, who was drafted last year and some people talked about. I like Zach Moss, but maybe I'm alone. I love Devin Singletary, and I get that he's not the greatest running back ever, and I'm not saying he's the greatest running back ever, but I think he's just being slept on. I think his contact balance is very, very strong. I think he's a smart runner. If you look at his yards per touches, yards per carry, yards per reception, I think they're far above average. So I think he's a guy with his opportunities. He makes the most out of it. No, he's not going to be a 1,500-yard rusher. He's never going to be a bell cow back by himself for 25 touches a game, but I think he's a very solid running back. You look at their receivers. Stephon Diggs absolutely put himself in that elite category. If he wasn't there before, he absolutely cemented himself as a definite top 5 receiver, maybe top 3. And, he's coming for that number 1 spot, whether that's, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams. He's right there knocking on the door. Huge year. Could even get better, man. It might even get better. So absolutely love their team. Cole Beasley is a guy underneath the radar. Like I said, Sanders, they got on there. So I love the Bills' firepower on offense. For team weakness, even though they addressed it in the draft, I still have to go just a pass rush from that front four. You look on the back end, and they got Tre'Davious White, who's might be my favorite corner in the NFL. I think he's a top 3 guy in the NFL. I hear, Gilmore get a lot more talk than him, but I think he's just every bit as talented as a Stephon Gilmore. Xavier Howard's another guy who's at that level. And of course you have, Jalen Ramsey and those cats out there. But I think Tre'Davious White's a great player. I think they have like a Matt Milano who's not going to be a Pro Bowler, an All Pro, but I think he's a very solid guy, knows how to play that. Tremaine Edmonds, same thing, big athletic guy. But I think their front four, they need to hope to maybe somebody that they're not necessarily banking on kind of steps up. And maybe that is a Boogie Bash. And maybe it's Russo and Basham both. They need to get a little bit of pressure just from that front four. I'm not saying it has to be like 07 New York Giants. I'm not saying it has to be like, what the Steelers can do when they had Bud Dupree. It doesn't have to be like that. But I do think they need to get some pressure without having to manufacture their pressure every single time they want to get pressure on the quarterback. All right. So when we look at biggest question mark, okay, and I've heard people saying this, and I get it. It makes sense. But people are saying that Josh Allen's going to have a regression. And I get it, man. He was a guy who was fairly inaccurate his career. Last year, he looked like prime Tom Brady, as far as, he's threading the needle. His arm strength is unbelievable. It's on a Patrick Mahomes level. It might be better than Patrick Mahomes as far as just a raw arm talent. He's a plus athlete. But people are saying he's going to take a slight step back. And, what does that look like? Does he go in between of Josh Allen from 2 years ago to last year? Or does he just take, just a very, maybe makes a few more mistakes, or maybe doesn't, complete a few balls that were 50-50 balls? I'm not sure. Or does he take a step forward? Was that the real Josh Allen we saw last year? That's the question mark. If Josh Allen stays at the level or takes us a level up, I think that they're real problems. I think the top 3 teams in the AFC are the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Browns. And I think if Josh Allen stays at that level, they might have to be the favorite out of those 3 teams. And I know, I said earlier that my bold prediction for the Browns is they were going to make the Super Bowl. But I can say the same thing about the Bills. Chiefs obviously are the top dogs right now. 2 times they made it to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. They've won one of those Super Bowls, lost the other. But, like I said, with Josh Allen on that level, very hard to beat. So my record prediction for the Buffalo Bills this year is 13-4. When we look at their conference, or their division, I should say, I think Miami's for real. Some people aren't sold on them because they're not sold on Tua. I think the Pats are a little bit overrated. And one of my favorite bets is actually the Patriots won't make the playoffs. I think that's pretty easy money personally, but some people disagree. So I really do like the Bills at a 13-4, and I could even see them going, a 14-3, maybe even a 15-2. They're that talented of a team, and they're deep enough to compete, even if they get a few minor injuries. So my bold prediction, which isn't super bold, but it's my prediction, is I think Stephon Diggs leads the league in receptions and receiving yards. So that's one of those things where I'm going to be putting some money down for sure. As soon as the props come out for league leaders and receiving stats, I'm going to be putting some money down on Diggs, just because I think he has a year under his belt with Josh Allen. I think he's elite. I think Allen's elite. And I don't see how those two can really be stopped. We've seen them do some special things, and I think it can only get better. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think. Drop in the comments. Do you agree with the stuff I said? Do you think I underplayed something? Do you think the Bills will, win the Super Bowl, make the Super Bowl? What do you guys think? Drop in the comments. And please, guys, help support the show. If you liked it, if you stayed around this long, please click like, please click subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.